The grand chamber of the Galactic Council lay silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. 12 beings sat around a crystal table, each one different from the others. Some floated in anti-gravity chairs, others rested on cushions of light, but they all shared the same look of defeat in their large, gentle eyes. High Counselor Reed, with his transparent skin and floating tendrils, raised a delicate hand. The holographic display in the center of the table changed, showing another colony world turning red. Another world lost to the swarm. That makes 17 worlds in just 30 days, Reed said, his voice barely above a whisper. Our best weapons cannot stop them. Our fastest ships cannot escape them. The end truly seems near. The other council members shifted uncomfortably. They were not built for war. Their species had evolved on peaceful worlds with perfect weather and gentle gravity. Their bodies were light and graceful, their minds tuned to art and science. None of them had ever needed to fight. Counselor Blue, named for her shimmering color, moved forward. The Ark of Scholars have found something, she said. In the oldest sections of the library, we discovered records of worlds we used to call Deathworlds. The chamber filled with nervous whispers. Deathworlds were planets that should not support life. Places of extreme gravity, harsh weather, and dangerous predators. Yet somehow, life had evolved there. One world in particular stands out. Blue continued, bringing up a new image. A blue and green planet appeared, wrapped in swirling white clouds. The natives call it Earth. Its gravity is crushing, its temperature swings from freezing to boiling, and its atmosphere is filled with corrosive oxygen. And yet life exists there, asked Counselor Bright, his glowing form pulsing with curiosity. Not just life, Blue answered. Intelligent life. The humans of Earth don't just survive their death world. They thrive on it. They run for fun. They swim in acid oceans. They eat food that would kill any of us. Their bones are reinforced with calcium deposits, their skin can repair itself, and their bodies can adapt to almost any environment. Reed leaned forward. You're suggesting we contact these humans. I'm suggesting more than that, Blue said. The ancient texts speak of a way to reach across dimensions, a summoning ritual using our quantum technology. We could bring one of these Deathworlders here. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Counselor Mist drifted up from his seat, his cloud-like form swirling with anxiety. Bring a Deathworlder here, among us. The very idea is terrifying. More terrifying than the swarm. Blue challenged. More terrifying than watching all our worlds fall. We need something the swarm has never faced before. We need a creature that understands survival against impossible odds. We need a Deathworlder. Reed raised his hand again, bringing silence to the chamber. He looked at each council member slowly, seeing the fear in their eyes, but also seeing something else. Hope. Show us this summoning ritual, he said finally. Blue activated another hologram, displaying complex quantum equations and energy patterns. It will take enormous power, she explained. We might only get one chance. But if it works, we can bring here exactly what we need. A human warrior, someone who understands combat and survival. And if this human decides to turn against us? Mist asked quietly. Then we'll face no worse fate than what already awaits us, Reed answered. He stood up, his transparent form catching the light. We are the Galactic Council. For 10,000 years, we have guided civilization through peace and prosperity. Now, for the first time, we must guide it through war. If we must put our fate in the hands of a Deathworlder to survive, then so be it. The vote was quick and unanimous. Within hours, the greatest quantum engineers in the galaxy began their work. As Reed watched them prepare the summoning chamber, he wondered what kind of being they would bring forth from that terrible, wonderful Deathworld called Earth. They would not have to wait long to find out. The summoning chamber glowed with a soft blue light. Quantum machines hummed and pulsed, their energy making the air itself feel heavy. Council members watched from behind safety shields as their engineers worked. Target locked on Earth coordinates, announced Chief Engineer Spark, his body flickering with nervous energy. We've found a suitable subject. The human appears to be a military specialist, currently alone in a remote training area. High Counselor Reed nodded. Begin the sequence. The machines roared to life. Lightning crackled between tall crystals, and a sphere of pure energy formed in the center of the chamber. The air crackled and twisted, turning into a swirling vortex of light. Then everything exploded into brilliant white. When the light faded, a figure stood in the center of the chamber. The human was tall, muscular, and wore dark green clothing with many pockets. His name tag read Jack. He held a combat knife in one hand, having clearly been in the middle of training when transported. The council members gasped. They had never seen anything like him. His movements were quick and precise, his eyes instantly scanning the room for threats. Here was a creature built for survival. Jack spotted the aliens and dropped into a defensive stance. What the hell? His voice was deep and steady, despite the shocking situation. Please remain calm, Reed said through the translation system. We mean you no harm. We brought you here because we desperately need help. Jack's eyes narrowed. You kidnapped me to ask for help. He didn't lower his knife, but he didn't attack either. The council members noticed how easily he balanced on their low-gravity floor, adapting instantly to the changed environment. We apologize for the method. Blue spoke up, floating forward slightly. But our civilization faces extinction. The swarm is destroying everything in its path. And we don't know how to fight. Jack looked around the room again, this time taking in details. The advanced technology, the clearly peaceful aliens, their terrified but hopeful expressions. He slowly lowered his knife. Show me what you're up against, he said. Reed activated a hologram showing the swarm's attacks. Jack watched intently as mechanical organic hybrid creatures tore through defense systems and overran peaceful worlds. His face grew serious. Your weapons, he asked. The finest energy beams in the galaxy, Spark said proudly. But they barely scratched the swarm's armor. Jack walked over to examine the hologram closer. The council members tensed as he moved, amazed by his heavy footsteps and solid presence. On their worlds, such weight would have crushed the ground. Your weapons aren't the problem, Jack said finally. It's how you're using them. You're fighting like it's a game with rules. War doesn't have rules. But there must be proper procedures for combat, Mist protested. Jack shook his head. The only rule in survival is to survive. Everything else is a luxury. He pointed to a scene of the swarm's attack. You're attacking head-on, trying to be honorable. Meanwhile, they're using every dirty trick in the book. Will you help us? Reed asked quietly. Jack was silent for a long moment. The council watched him anxiously, these gentle beings who had never known violence now putting their hopes in a creature from a world that bred warriors. I'll help, Jack said finally. But you need to understand something. I'm not going to just fight for you. I'm going to teach you to fight for yourselves. It won't be pretty. It won't be gentle. But it will keep you alive. The council members looked at each other. They had summoned a Deathworlder, expecting a simple warrior. Instead, they had found a teacher. When do we begin? Blue asked. Jack picked up his knife again, but this time he held it carefully, like a teaching tool rather than a weapon. We begin now, he said. Lesson 1. Survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about being the most determined. The council was about to learn just how far determination could take them. The training room fell silent as Jack lifted a metal container that weighed as much as 3 council members. The aliens watched with a mixture of fear and amazement as he moved it easily across the room. This is what you've been calling too heavy to move? Jack asked, setting down the container. On Earth, this would be a normal weight for one person to lift. Counselor Blue drifted closer, her scanner humming. Your muscle density is incredible. And your bones, they're like steel compared to ours. That's not the impressive part, Jack said. He walked over to a wall panel that had warning signs all over it. "What's behind here?" "Don't touch that." Engineer Spark flickered in alarm. "That area has toxic radiation levels that could kill." Jack opened the panel. The aliens gasped. Their sensors showed radiation levels that should have been instantly fatal. But Jack just stood there, checking the machinery inside. "Mild radiation," he said with a shrug. "Humans can handle this level for short periods. Our cells repair the damage." "Impossible," whispered Mist. "You repair radiation damage. We adapt to lots of things," Jack explained, closing the panel. "Heat, cold, poison, radiation. In small doses, they make us stronger." High Counselor Reed floated forward. "Now we understand why the ancient texts called Earth a death world. Everything there tried to kill you, so you evolved to survive anything." "Pretty much," Jack agreed, "which is exactly why I can help you fight the swarm. But first, you need to understand something about humans." He walked to a food dispenser and got himself a drink. The aliens watched in horror as he drank what they considered cleaning fluid. "This is just water with minerals," Jack said, noticing their reactions. "Basic stuff. What do you drink?" "Purified light essence," Blue answered. "Anything stronger would damage our systems." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "See, that's the difference. You evolved in perfect conditions. Everything dangerous was removed. But humans, we evolved fighting every step of the way. That's not just physical, it's mental too." He brought up a hologram of the swarm. "You see these as unstoppable monsters. I see targets with weak points. You think of combat as something awful. We see it as a challenge to overcome. Is that why you seem so calm about all this?" Reed asked. Jack smiled slightly. "Humans are pretty good at adapting to weird situations, being summoned by aliens. Sure, why not? Fighting space monsters. Just another Tuesday." The council members exchanged looks. This casual attitude toward danger was as alien to them as Jack's physical abilities. "Watch this," Jack said. He pulled out his knife and made a small cut on his arm. The aliens cried out in alarm, but fell silent as they watched the wound start healing almost immediately. "Our bodies constantly repair themselves," Jack explained. "Cuts, breaks, burns. Give us time, and we heal. It's not fast like in movies, but it's way faster than most species." "Movies?" Spark asked curiously. "Stories we tell for fun," Jack said. "Actually, a lot of them are about aliens and space battles. Though I guess real aliens are a bit different than what we imagined." Blue's scanner beeped. "Your adrenaline levels are rising just talking about combat. Your species actually enjoys dangerous situations." "Some of us do," Jack admitted. "We call it being adrenaline junkies. But more importantly, we know how to use that rush. Channel it. That's what I'm going to teach you." He walked to the center of the room and gestured for the aliens to gather around. "Lesson 2, he announced. "Fear is natural. Even humans feel fear. The trick isn't being fearless. It's using that fear to make you stronger." The council members moved closer, still nervous but increasingly fascinated by their Deathworlder teacher. "Now," Jack said, "who wants to learn how to turn their peaceful technology into weapons the swarm won't expect?" Slowly, one by one, the aliens raised their hands or appendages. They were starting to understand that their greatest weakness, their peaceful nature, could become a strength with the right guidance. The cultural shock was just beginning. "Your medical devices can heal injuries, right?" Jack asked, standing in front of a group of nervous aliens in what used to be their peace garden. Now it was a makeshift training ground. "Yes, but they're not weapons," Engineer Spark replied, holding one of the delicate healing tools. Jack grinned. "Anything can be a weapon if you think differently enough. Watch." He picked up the medical device and adjusted its settings. "If it can knit tissue together, what happens if you reverse the beam?" He aimed at a practice target and fired. The medical beam, usually used for healing, tore through the target's surface. The council members gasped. That's not what it's meant for. Counselor Blue protested. Exactly, Jack said. The swarm won't expect it. They'll see medical ships coming to help the wounded and won't realize they're facing weapons until it's too late. High Counselor Reed watched from the side, his transparent form shimmering with concern and interest. You think differently than us, Jack. We see tools for their intended purpose. You see possibilities. That's because humans had to get creative to survive, Jack explained. He picked up what looked like a simple cleaning robot. What's this used for? It removes waste material from our ships, Mist answered, his cloud-like form swirling. Jack quickly reprogrammed it. The small robot now moved aggressively, its cleaning lasers turning into cutting beams. Now it's a combat drone. Small, hard to spot, and nobody expects the cleaning bot to fight back. The training continued through the day. Jack taught the peaceful aliens how to turn everyday items into defensive tools. More importantly, he taught them to think differently. You're not as physically strong as humans, he told them, but you have other advantages. You can float, pass through small spaces, and your technology is far advanced. Use what makes you unique. Blue proved particularly good at tactical thinking. Her floating form could scout ahead without being noticed, and she quickly learned to use her natural bioluminescence as a signal system. Spark, with his engineering skills, started modifying their tools in ways even Jack hadn't thought of. He created energy shields from power cells meant for growing plants. Good, Jack praised as he watched Spark test his invention. That's what I'm talking about. Stop thinking about fighting like we do on Earth. Create your own way of combat. Even Mist, who had been the most afraid of violence, found his own style. His cloud-like body could surround enemies and temporarily blind them. Remember, Jack said during a break, humans aren't better warriors because we're stronger. We're better because we never give up, and we use everything we have. That's what you need to learn. Reed approached Jack as the others practiced. I notice you're not teaching them to kill, he observed. You're not killers, Jack replied. Trying to make you fight like humans would be a mistake. Instead, I'm teaching you to disable, defend, and outsmart. That's more your style. The swarm won't show us the same mercy, Reed said quietly. No, they won't, Jack agreed. But you'll win because they won't understand what they're fighting. They're used to direct combat. You'll hit them with cleaning bots and medical beams, and floating scouts. By the time they figure it out, it'll be too late. The training session ended with a practice drill. The aliens, who just days ago couldn't imagine fighting, now moved with purpose. They turned their peaceful tools into surprising weapons, communicated silently with light signals, and worked together in ways the swarm would never expect. Not bad, Jack said as they finished. Not bad at all. You're starting to think like survivors. We're starting to think like humans, Spark asked. Jack shook his head. Better. You're thinking like yourselves, but with a fighting spirit. That's what will save you. As the aliens left for rest, Reed stayed behind with Jack. Tomorrow, the High Counselor said, we received word that the swarm is approaching one of our outer worlds. We won't have much more time to train. Jack watched the sunset over the alien city. Then tomorrow, we'll see if peace lovers can become warriors without losing who they are. The real test was about to begin. The emergency alarms blared through the colony on World 7. The sky darkened as the swarm's ships entered the atmosphere, massive black vessels that looked like mechanical insects. Remember your training. Jack's voice came through the communication system. He stood in the command center with High Counselor Reed, watching dozens of screens. Don't fight them head-on. Use what makes you different. The swarm landed their first wave of troops. They were horrifying to look at, half-machine, half-organic creatures with sharp metal limbs and glowing red sensors. They expected an easy victory, like all their previous attacks. They were wrong. As the swarm advanced into the city, they found it seemingly empty. No defenders, no resistance. Just quiet streets and empty buildings. Then Mist's voice came over the radio. "Cloud team, ready." Suddenly, the air itself came alive. Dozens of cloud-like aliens descended from above, surrounding the swarm troops in thick fog. The enemy's sensors couldn't penetrate the living mist. "Now, Blue," Jack commanded. Blue and her team activated their bioluminescence in careful patterns, creating confusing light shows that scrambled the swarm's targeting systems. The enemy troops fired blindly, hitting nothing. "Spark, you're up," Jack said with a smile. The cleaning robots, hundreds of them, emerged from hidden spots. Their simple cleaning lasers, modified under Jack's guidance, began cutting through the swarm's leg joints. The enemy, expecting major weapons, had no defense against these small, unexpected attacks. "Medical team, go," Reed ordered. The medical ships descended. The swarm ignored them at first. They were clearly marked as rescue vessels. But these ships now carried the reversed healing beams. They fired, and the swarm's biomechanical armor began to fall apart. "They're retreating," Blue reported excitedly. "The first wave is actually retreating." But Jack's expression remained serious. "Here comes their second wave. Bigger troops, bigger weapons. Show them what else you've got." The swarm's second wave stomped into the city on massive legs. They carried energy cannons that could level buildings. But again, they found no direct opposition. Instead, they found Spark's latest invention. Modified garden energy shields created walls of light that their weapons couldn't penetrate. Every time they destroyed one shield, 3 more appeared. "They're getting frustrated," Jack observed. "They don't understand why they can't win with pure force. Now, hit them with everything." The aliens launched their coordinated attack. Mist's team blinded them. Blue's team confused them. The cleaning bots cut them. The medical ships broke down their armor. And now Spark's team added something new: construction beams reversed to deconstruct the enemy's weapons. The mighty swarm, for the first time ever, began to panic. Their attacks became desperate and sloppy. They had never faced an enemy that refused to fight normally, that turned peaceful technology into strange but effective weapons. "Final strike," Jack commanded. "Reed, give the signal." High Counselor Reed activated the city's atmospheric processors, machines usually used to keep the air clean and fresh. Now they sucked all the air out of the battle zone. The swarm troops, who needed oxygen for their organic parts, began to fail. Within hours, it was over. The swarm retreated, leaving behind broken troops and confused commanders. They had lost their first battle. In the command center, the aliens celebrated. Blue's light patterns danced with joy. Mist swirled in happy patterns. Spark's energy form crackled with excitement. "We did it," Blue exclaimed. "We actually defeated them." Jack nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. "You did well. But something's bothering me about how they fought." "What do you mean?" Reed asked. "They were desperate," Jack explained. "Not just aggressive, but panicked. Like they're running from something worse than us." The celebration quieted as his words sank in. "What could be worse than the swarm?" Mist asked nervously. Jack stared at the tactical display, watching the swarm ships flee. "I don't know, but I think we need to find out. This victory might be just the beginning of a bigger problem." The aliens looked at each other with concern. They had won their first battle, but their human ally suggested this war might be more complicated than they thought. The real mystery was just beginning. In the Council's main strategy room, Jack stood before a huge holographic map showing the swarm's movement patterns over the past year. After their first defeat, he had requested all available data about their attacks. "Look at this," he said, pointing to the pattern. "The swarm isn't expanding. They're moving in one direction, always the same direction, like they're running away from something." Blue floated closer to the map, her form glowing dimly with concern. "Running. But they're so powerful. What could make them run?" Jack zoomed out the map. "That's what bothers me. See these destroyed systems behind their path. The damage patterns are different from swarm attacks. Engineer Spark analyzed the data with his sensors. He's right. The swarm tears things apart. But these systems, they're just empty, like something consumed everything in them. High Counselor Reed drifted forward, his transparent form clouded with worry. Are you saying there's a worse enemy out there? I think, Jack said slowly, we need to try talking to the swarm. The room erupted in shocked exclamations. Mist swirled in agitation, nearly dissolving in fear. Talk to them, he gasped. They're monsters. They destroy everything. No, Jack said firmly. They destroy what's in their path as they run. That's different from destroying everything. Think about it. They've never completely destroyed a world. They damage, they take resources, but they always leave enough for life to continue. Blue's glow brightened with sudden understanding. Like they know something about preserving life. About running from something that doesn't preserve it at all. Exactly, Jack nodded. On Earth, we learned that sometimes the most aggressive animals are just scared. When you corner something, it fights harder. Reed moved to the command console. But how can we communicate with them? We've tried before. They never respond. Jack smiled. You tried your way, peaceful broadcasts and diplomatic signals. Let's try the human way. Sometimes you have to think like your enemy to understand them. He worked with Spark to modify their communication equipment. Instead of sending peaceful messages, they began broadcasting data about the empty systems behind the swarm. They added information about their recent victory, showing they were strong enough to be worth talking to. Now we wait, Jack said. They didn't wait long. Within hours, a single swarm ship appeared at the edge of their system. It was smaller than their usual vessels, clearly a communication craft. They're sending a signal, Spark reported excitedly. But it's not like their usual attack patterns. The message decoded into images and broken words. The council members watched in horror as they saw what the swarm was running from. A vast, dark entity that moved between stars, consuming everything in its path. Not just destroying, but erasing all trace of existence. The void, the translation read, consumes all. Running. Must survive. Must preserve some life. Better damaged than gone. Jack's face grew serious. They're refugees. The swarm isn't an invasion force. They're survivors, taking what they need to stay ahead of this void, trying to save what they can in their own harsh way. Like you would do on your Deathworld, Reed said quietly. Take harsh actions to survive worse threats. We need to show them the message, Blue suggested. All the worlds ahead of their path need to know. The swarm isn't our real enemy. Jack nodded. And maybe, if we work together, we can find a way to fight this void. The swarm knows how to survive. Your people know how to build, and humans. Humans know how to fight impossible odds. Reed finished. But will the other worlds believe us? Will they accept allying with the swarm? They'll have to, Jack said grimly. Because if we don't all work together, there won't be anything left to save. The room fell silent as they watched the swarm ship waiting at the edge of their system. Their greatest enemy was about to become their most important ally against a threat none of them could face alone. The real war was just beginning. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen a meeting quite like this. On one side sat the council members, their gentle forms glowing and floating. On the other side stood 3 swarm representatives, their biomechanical bodies carefully held still to appear less threatening. And in the middle stood Jack, the human who had changed everything. The void will reach council space in 6 months. The lead swarm representative clicked and hummed through the translator. We have been running for 3 years. Many of our worlds are already lost. Show them what you showed us, Jack said. The swarm projected a recording of the void, a massive darkness that moved between stars, leaving nothing behind. Not even wreckage or ruins, just empty space where living worlds once existed. Now show them your survival plans, Jack encouraged. The swarm's next images showed massive space stations they had built, designed to hide in gas giants and survive even if planets were destroyed. They had been building these while they ran, trying to preserve at least some life from each world they passed. Your actions make sense now, High Counselor Reed said. The resources you took, the partial destruction. You were building shelters for survivors. Yes, the swarm leader confirmed. Better some survive with damage than all die in perfection. Blue floated forward. We have thousands of worlds, advanced technology, and now we understand survival tactics thanks to our human teacher. Together, we might have a chance. Jack nodded. The Council knows how to build beautiful things. The swarm knows how to build survival shelters. And humans, he smiled, we know how to turn beauty into strength and survival into victory. Engineer Spark suddenly lit up with excitement. The swarm's biological technology combined with our energy systems, we could create defenses the void has never encountered. The swarm representatives clicked in agreement. Our weapons merged with your peaceful tools. The strategy that defeated us could work against the greater enemy. But we need to act fast, Jack said. First, we evacuate the worlds in the void's path. The swarm's space stations and the Council's terraform technology can create safe havens. Then we prepare our trap. Over the next hours, the former enemies work together. The swarm's brutal efficiency combined with the Council's elegant technology, all guided by human creativity. They planned, they built, they prepared. You know, Mist said to Jack during a break, when we summoned a Deathworlder, we thought we were getting a warrior. Instead, we got a teacher who showed us how to turn enemies into allies. Jack watched the swarm and Council engineers working together, creating weapons that could fight the darkness itself. Sometimes the best way to win isn't to fight harder, but to fight smarter. To see past what something appears to be and find what it could become. High Counselor Reed approached them. The evacuation ships are ready. The defense stations are under construction. The swarm is already modifying our peaceful technology into weapons the void won't expect. All because we took a chance on summoning help from a Deathworld. No, Jack corrected him. All because you were willing to learn and change. Being from a Deathworld just means I understand survival. You all did the hard part. You adapted, you trusted, you overcame your fears. Blue's glow pulsed warmly. And now 3 different species will face the darkness together. The peaceful builders, the desperate survivors, and the determined warriors. Pretty good combination, Jack said with a smile. The void won't know what hit it. As they looked out at the stars, they could almost feel the darkness approaching. But now, instead of fear, they felt ready. The Council had learned to fight without losing their peace. The swarm had found allies instead of victims. And one human had shown them all that the greatest strength comes from working together. The end was no longer near. Instead, a new beginning was just around the corner. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the void moved forward, unaware that it was no longer hunting scared prey. Instead, it was heading toward the most unlikely alliance the galaxy had ever seen. The real adventure was just beginning.